Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome. There's plenty of seats up front here. My name is David Bradbury, and I work at the Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies. And along with Hotel Vermont, Lauren and Hans, I saw somewhere around here, and our media partner, RETN, welcome to tonight's event with our Female Founders Series. Thank you for braving the elements. And you know, gosh, Sam, I got thinking, I wish there were an entrepreneur that actually made something on a night like this that just would resonate. Can you think of anybody?
I might be able to think of anyone. Is Over Easy in the house tonight?
Is Over Easy? Stand up. All right, what do you got? This is your chance.
I'm Eva, and this is Meg, and we're the co-founders of Over Easy. It's a fashionable and warm hood that can be worn outdoors, and it's designed to fit over your ski helmet. It can be worn just as is around campus, walking your dog, or the cold streets of Burlington. We just launched our website an hour ago, so wow. Overeasy.co to check it out, and get yourself a hood.
All right.
You guys can check them out.
Check them out. Thank you, Meg. Thanks, Ava. All right. Sorry, shameless promotions, what we teach. So, hey, it always helps here. Just raise your hand if you're an active entrepreneur or thinking about it. Yeah, nice. That's good.
Oh yeah, sorry. Whoops.
Hey,
Sorry, right here.
Dwayne, was your hand up back there? Yeah, it should be. It should be. But it's uncommon. Okay. Who's been a mentor to someone? Great. Love seeing that. How about angel investor? Ken Merritt, I know, is hiding somewhere. We got not yet. Good one, Sam. Okay. Well, welcome. We at VCET, we're fortunate enough to work with about 250 Vermont startups and entrepreneurs every year, trying to help them realize their dreams of getting a product to market, developing income and wealth for themselves and their community. And part of what we do is through different content, our podcast called Start Here. It's available on VPR as well as iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google. That sort of tells stories similar to what we're here tonight in order to demystify and inspire the journey and the risks associated with entrepreneurship. So thank you for making the effort. That's the first step in being an entrepreneur, showing up. And at this point, again, I want to thank Hotel Vermont for their leadership in the community and helping put this event on, and of course RETN, which makes this broadcast, our questions, and this wonderful knowledge available to just about 40,000 other other Vermont households. So with that, I'll kick it over to my colleague, Sam Roach-Gerber. David's out.
Sweet. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Thanks for driving safely and getting here. I assume you all drove safely because you're here in one piece. So thank you all for coming. This is the second event in our second series of female founders, which is super exciting. And to build off of what Dave was saying, I just want to share a little bit about why we're doing this series. So one of my favorite groups in Burlington is Change the Story. If you haven't heard of them, look it up. But they've come up with some awesome reports and some really powerful stats. And I just want to share a couple of them with you. So only 8% of Vermont's highest grossing companies are led by women, and women still only make 84 cents of every dollar earned by men. The good news is that the number of women-owned businesses in Vermont is growing. Between 2007 and 2012, they grew twice the rate of male-owned businesses, 15% versus 6%. So that's why we're doing this, to help connect female entrepreneurs, to inspire the next companies, and to demystify the journey, as Dave said. So tonight we're going to be talking about sustainability and personal care. Obviously, this is a really strong industry for Vermont, and we have some really amazing companies that are doing their part. So without further ado, just to give you guys a little breakdown of the evening, we're going to do a little Q&A for 45 minutes or so, and then we'll get some questions from you guys, from the audience. So remember your questions for the end, and then we'll call on you, go around with the mic so that we record it for RETN. And I promised my panelists I would let them introduce themselves so that I don't uncover the part of their bio that they hate. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll start down with you, Magda, and kind of work our way back.
Can you guys hear me? Is this on? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Ready for a fun night? All right.
My name is Madga Van Dusen, and I am one of the owners of Brio Coffeeworks here in Burlington, down on Pine Street. We are a specialty roastery. We focus on wholesale roasting, but we also focus on coffee education, as well as a small retail component at the roastery. Anything else I should say about myself, or is this good?
We'll start there.
Yeah, all right.
It's
All right.
perfect.
We'll get to know each other.
Hello, everyone. I am Montana Burns, and I'm the owner and acupuncturist herbalist at Atlas Acupuncture here in Burlington. And it's about I'm 4 years old now, as of oh my gosh, like 10 days ago. So pretty
Happy
exciting.
anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Williams. I'm the CEO of 1% for the Planet, which is a global nonprofit based here in Burlington, focused on environmental engagement. We focus on accelerating smart environmental giving. I'm also here with another hat on, too. I was one of the founders of the Vermont Yak Company, which was in business for about 5 years. So that's something else that I can talk about this evening.
Hi everyone, my name is Akshata Nayak, and I'm here with a couple of hats on as well. I'm the owner of the OrangeOwl, which is a vegan skincare product line that I launched about 8 years ago now. Sounds crazy to say that. And I'm also the nutritionist at the wellness center that my husband and I started called Alternative Roots Wellness Center. We're based in Essex. So definitely the most interesting things I could be doing with my master's in biochemistry and in nutrition. Always surprises people when they look at what I do or what I've studied, and then they ask me, what do you do? And I say, I make soap. So it's definitely been an interesting journey, and I'll be happy to talk about all that with you guys today.
Very qualified soap maker, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Magda, let's start with you. So you have a retail store, tasting counter, and you also sell your coffee wholesale. Was that always your vision, or has it kind of pieced together differently than you had originally imagined?
Yes, that was always our vision. Yeah, kind of amazing. I was reflecting back a little today to prepare for this evening, and roasting was definitely the focus of our business, but really the glue that holds it together now, and what was always our vision was the coffee education piece. Before we started the business, it was about 4 years ago. Happy anniversary, 4th. Before we started the business, we thought that we didn't really see any good resources in the area, particularly in Vermont, for either professional baristas or home enthusiasts for more in-depth coffee education. It was either too expensive, not very accessible. So that was a primary pillar that we wanted to build into everything that we do. So it is really kind of the glue that holds the wholesale and the retail piece together. The retail piece, we don't operate as a cafe, but we have a tasting counter at the roastery, and we sell home brewing equipment, pour-over sets, grinders, things like that, and our roasted coffee, as well as some cold products. And that area is something that we didn't think would be as large as I think it has grown, and we're very pleasantly surprised by that and really happy about it. We never intended to do it, but I think in conversations with people, you learn to, you see what the needs are and you kind of adjust. So we were really happy to bring that piece into the business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you said you started 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When did you think about opening your own business? When did that seed sort of start?
So that was probably 5 years before we actually launched. And at the time, kind of a backstory on how we got to Vermont, my husband and I, who's also my business partner, we lived in Washington, D.C. for about 15 years, and we were not in coffee. We were working in international development. I had gone to school there, gotten my bachelor's in international affairs, was a great city for that. Then I went to get my master's in accounting. I thought I was going to be an accountant, and decided that that was not for me.
Useful though.
It's very useful, and I'm still a bean counter.
Oh my God.
I know, I was
Get
gonna,
outta here.
yes,
Go.
I did it. That was my goal for the day. All right.
You can leave.
So-
That was good.
Anyway, so we were both in international development fields, worked in a couple of nonprofits, different capacities, democracy development and civic education work. And my husband is from Vermont. And if you know Vermonters that live outside of Vermont, there's a couple things that I've learned over the years. One, they stick together. He sort of happened to move with all his friends and school buddies down to DC. And then within a year, they all kind of moved back. And the whole time, it's like, okay, when am I going to go back to Vermont? So anyway, I'm a imposter, I say, but I'm a very willing imposter, and it's been amazing. So anyway, he's always wanted to move back to Vermont, and he comes from a family of small business owners as well. So I think that was sort of more in his blood than mine. But coffee is something that we got into almost by chance in DC. Probably as a student, I spent way more time than I needed to at cafes. DC is kind of an interesting specialty coffee city. It's not always up with the times on other trends, but coffee was actually, specialty coffee has been very strong in DC. So we've gotten to experience that type of coffee and just enjoyed it as consumers. And when we were thinking about longer term planning and, okay, I'm going to move to Vermont, what are we going to do? I really didn't want to do accounting. So we happened to come across a workshop that was happening and about running a cafe. And we just kind of attended it, not really thinking much of it. And I think that was the seed that really planted the idea for the business. And as we would visit here, my in-laws also live in the area right now, so we would come and sort of, check out the scene and seeing what's going on, and felt like there was a real need for kind of what started building in our minds of what we could do here, and also thinking about, okay, if we're going to be here, we got to have good coffee to drink. So anyway, that's sort of how we started, and then about 5 years before moving, we really kind of focused all of our free time and attention to coffee. So Nate started home roasting. I took on a second job in addition to like my full-on consulting gig as a barista at nights and on the weekends, which was way fun. But really immersing ourselves in the industry. We didn't want to just start it and hope for the best. We wanted to be really educated. And we also got involved in trainings and education opportunities through our specialty coffee association. So that was like the next 5 years. We just kind of did that at our free time.
Lots of research.
Lots of research, yes.
Awesome.
Daily.
Cool. Montana, let's go over to you. What was the hardest part of getting Atlas Acupuncture off the ground?
Totally. So I think probably everyone on this panel can relate, and maybe a lot of people in the audience, but being an entrepreneur, you have a very busy work schedule, working 7 days a week, available all the time. I moonlighted as a waitress for a year, and I look back and I have really fond memories of it, but it was crazy. It was a lot to take on while also trying to form your own sustainable practices. But honestly, I think that Vermont has been a really wonderful place, particularly Burlington, incredibly supportive of small businesses and especially women in small business. And I feel like I got really lucky in some ways. And the best piece of advice or business wisdom that I gleaned was success is when opportunity meets preparation. And I was really prepared. I had a great education. I went to UVM for undergrad, which was awesome. I loved it. And I was actually in neuroscience and pre-med, and then worked at UVM for a little while in general surgery, and decided that that was not what I didn't want to do, disaster control. I wanted to do preventative care, and got lucky enough to go to Boulder for grad school. And not many people know that acupuncture is a 4-year graduate degree, which is pretty intense.
Oh, I did not know that. You're right.
So it was,
That's actually good to know, though. If you're going to be sticking needles in me, it's 4 years seems about right.
which is perfect. Yeah. And I also feel incredibly lucky that our school in our senior graduate year, we had to write a business plan as part of our training.
What school is this? The acupuncture?
Southwest Acupuncture College
All right,
in
shout out.
Boulder.
I'm
Yeah,
going to give him a call.
it was great. And I'm so amazed looking back, like I'll reread my old business plan from like 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like most of this came true. This is crazy. I feel so lucky. But I also felt prepared. Like there was a vision, there was a clear path and brand and way that I wanted to create things. So actually the kind of serendipitous story of it is that I got lucky and worked initially with a co-op called the Wellness Collective on Pine Street, which was really wonderful as an incubator. And I got to slowly grow organically, which is really what I wanted to do rather than discount marketing. Word of mouth is actually like the best possible referral sources, as I'm sure.
For wellness.
Thank you. Yes, especially for wellness. And so did that, and I was walking down Bank Street one day after going to the bank, and there was this for lease sign in this really cute Victorian house next door to a Single Pebble, if you guys are familiar with Burlington. And I just looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, that would be the best place for like a little apothecary clinic. And my partner was with me, and he's a real go-getter. So he just dialed the number, like right there on the spot.
What are you doing?
I know, I was like so, like,
way
kind
too
of
much commitment.
embarrassed. Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? And the real estate agent was actually like an acquaintance of ours and was like, oh yeah, I'll be right there. And so it's just like Burlington.
You had no choice, essentially, is how you
It's
got
like
into
the universe aligned. And it was great. Like, I feel so lucky. You know, I didn't know that I was quite ready, and I was, and launched into it, and it was pretty successful right away, which was great. But actually, the biggest hiccup, to get back to your original question, was, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Burlington Town Center Mall project construction. It's happening now. And so we knew that that was a possibility, and it was probably the biggest obstacle I've had to overcome, but it's taught me so much about being a business person, and that you can be really stubborn with your ideals and your vision and your brand, but you have to be able to adapt and figure out solutions to very difficult problems which you have no control. So for me, I had to move my business 3 months ago, and it all worked out. The universe is amazing. I'm 38 weeks pregnant, which, if you didn't notice. And we got to renovate our duplex, and now my clinic is in the downstairs of our house on Howard Street in the South End, and we live upstairs. So it all worked out,
Perfect.
but holy cow. Entrepreneurship.
Awesome. So Kate, I'm going in order now. It started going in order, and now I have to keep going. So most of us, I think, know you as CEO of 1% for the Planet, but if you could touch a little bit on your entrepreneurial journey at Vermont Yak Company.
I like listening to you talking about being so well prepared, because I have a very different story. We became prepared in the process, but in 2008, my husband and I and 2 other families founded the Vermont Yak Company, which was a meat-producing company with a herd of yaks. And it was the first commercial yak business in Vermont. And basically, I guess summer of 2007, we were out in Montana visiting my brother, who has a sheep ranch, and he had some guard yaks. And somehow we came home from that trip with the idea that we should have a yak farm. And so we had been talking about having some sort of a farm business. We were very interested. And so but we didn't have the land ourselves, so we ended up partnering with some friends who lived nearby. So it was a 3-family, 2-farm business, and we ended up doing quite well. We started with 20 yaks that we brought in from Minnesota, and we grew the herd to 50, and we were able to, when we made the decision to sell, we were able to, recoup all of our money and expenses. And, we considered that we had gained a lot too, just through the experience, and we had improved the farm property and, considered it a very successful venture. And I think, for me in a different way, a lot of the entrepreneurial experience was about, essentially marrying these two other families, I will say. So doing it with these other people, which was necessary. It enabled us to do it because that brought the land in, it brought the skills in. We were all working day jobs full time and managing the Yak Company on the side. So, I'd often go to the farm after work and what I'm wearing and pull on my boots and go move the animals. And we had young kids at the time. And so having that bigger family was actually an interesting part of it, because it both created this sort of interesting social network, amazing social network that we, were part of doing this business, and also a lot of wisdom and experience around the table. We had a sort of tech accounting guy. We had my husband, who's more of a marketing guy. We had the farmer whose dad had the dairy farm on one of the farms. So it was really great experience. So we basically, pieced together a lot of our preparation as we went on our way. And I think one of the things that I learned through that process was sort of trying to figure out where is the line of when do you know enough to sort of take the leap, because I think sometimes there's a danger in waiting too long and thinking I need to learn everything and then I'll know when to start. And you can also leap too early. And I think in this experience, we felt like we leaped and amazing resources appeared that we were able to access that we would not have seen had we not sort of taken that step. And if we had learned too much more, we might have thought we were totally crazy and not proceeded. I think that was one of the lessons. And I will say too, on the flip side, once we sold the business, which was a really hard decision just because we poured a lot into it and, a lot of affection for each other and for the animals, but it was the right decision based on sort of all of our lives at that point. But one of the things that was an outcome is, and that I'm probably most proud of, we're very proud of the business and what we accomplished, but also all of the relationships amongst the co-owners are still really strong. We still get together frequently and have just an incredibly close bond, and we went through a lot together, as you can imagine, with 50 animals and lots of people and life and death and freezing and heat and all of the things that can happen on a farm. And so that was a great outcome, lots of learning, but lots of really amazing relationships as well.
It's a lot of human capital.
Yes.
6 founders. Wow. All right, Akshata.
Hey.
Your products are available pretty much all over the country. Amazing. I want to talk a little bit about starting because that's what they were talking about, but I also want to talk to you about scaling. Mm-hmm. So how did you go from, this teeny tiny operation to shipping all over the country?
Yeah, so I think we can draw a line here of people who are really prepared and others who weren't when they started. Because definitely for the OrangeOwl, at least, my educational background was for the Wellness Center, right? As a nutritionist, my husband's a chiropractor at the Wellness Center, and I call him a forced volunteer at the OrangeOwl because he gets pulled in anytime I need help. But yeah, mine was a very non-traditional start. It was for very personal reasons. It was something I wanted to see if I could do, and it was therapeutic for me at the time when I was recovering from a lot of different personal things. And so it was mostly confidence building and also just sort of going out there and seeing, can I do this? And that was a very important question for me to answer at that time. And so that's how the OrangeOwl got started. So I can't say that I went in knowing exactly what it was going to turn into. I had a logo, I had a fun-sounding name, I had bright colors, and I loved standing there and making body butter and soap. And so I just sort of went for it. But I would say in terms of scaling up, that has been something that I've been focusing more on in the last couple of years. And that's when I've got most of my wholesale accounts. I've been getting, more retail accounts and things like that. All of that's been happening more in the last 2 years because I decided that I was ready for it. The first 5 years, I would say I was sort of figuring things out, very steep learning curve. We did not have a business plan writing option at any of the courses I took. And so definitely learning on the go. And so that was the first 5 years. I'm extremely lucky because I had and still have all the resources in terms of the financial aspect of it to actually just go out there and do this and see if it would work or not. And I know not a lot of people have that option, but I did, and so I just sort of went for it. And the scaling, like I said, has been the last couple of years, just sort of attending more trade shows and following up more, taking more time to do things like that, staying in touch with the buyers. And so it's definitely added more steps to what I need to do on a regular basis. But it's something that I think I've been ready for. And so now I have to think about the next step, which is, I went from one room in my house to oil buckets all over my house, to taking over my basement, to now having a production space, to now just sort of having corridors in my production space where I can walk around in if I don't move around too much. So now I need a larger space and probably some help. So it's sort of getting there. But again, it's been very organic. And that's what I have really liked. And it's been comfortable for me. And so that's what I'm focusing on.
Awesome. And is it still just you?
It is still just me. Well, and like I said, forced volunteer of a husband. He's like sitting back there going, hey.
Excuse me.
Especially the last few months, he's had to take over quite a bit because of, again, 7 more weeks to baby coming out. So he's...
Not intentional, just to be
Yeah. I know, we've also alternated very nicely. Yeah, so he's had to do a lot. So I think he basically now makes body butter in his sleep. And yeah.
Never would have thought, did you? Awesome. I love that. So I want to dig a little bit into sustainability here and start with you, Magda. You obviously care a lot about that in terms of sourcing of your product and, fair trade, organic, all of that. So can you tell me a little bit about just how that has been part of the vision for your company?
Sure. We didn't have a super clear vision in the beginning in terms of whether, we were going to go half fair trade organic or how many coffees we would source that would have certifications. But we kind of from the beginning decided that fair trade and organic would not be a requirement for us bringing in coffees. And I will want to explain that a little bit. Right now, about half of our coffees that we have are fair trade and organic. There are a couple of coffees that carry other certifications. Rainforest Alliance is another common one. So about half of our coffees do carry the certifications. But the challenges with certifications that we've sort of learned to work around is that there's so many producers growing just the most amazing coffees out there. And certification is just not in the cards for them. It's often very costly, and that may be as a result of them being a very small farm, may just be a family. Some farmers, and it depends on the country, they may not be part of a cooperative, which a lot of these certifications are actually geared towards cooperatives instead of individual farmers and producers. And so we decided that we just did not want to leave those producers out of the fold, and we wanted to source coffees regardless of the certification. With that said, growing practices and sustainability is super important to us, so we work very closely with our importing partners to learn about the growing practices, the various social programs that a lot of farms and cooperatives have in place, getting a better idea of what happens at origin. I started doing some travel to visit with some of the producers that we're sourcing from. And so I guess I would say from like a sustainability perspective, it's not as black and white and clear cut as, fair trade organic or certifications having an impact. One of the things that we decided to kind of grow this year in our business were special offerings. And it's been going very well. And these are sort of we try to seek out the most unique coffees with unique flavor profiles. And that's been going very well, and we hope to grow it. Most of those coffees have not been certified. With that said, they also have been some of our most expensive coffees. So a lot of people, when they think of fair trade, particularly with coffee or bananas or cacao and things like that, there tends to be an assumption that there is some set price that is handed over to the producer, and it's just not as easy and clear cut as that.
Yeah, so I imagine it's a lot of just taking the time to make sure that you're sourcing from, companies that you believe in and doing your research.
Yeah, absolutely. For our size, we work with 6 different importers and importing partners, which is a lot for our size. Typically, companies will probably work with maybe 1 or 2 importers. But we've forged some great relationships even from our early days with importers, and now we've been sourcing coffee from them for the last 4 years. So we've gotten to know them. We understand how they see their jobs and what they do in terms of oversight and information from the farms. So it's a challenge. It's bringing fair trade organic coffees is not really the answer all the time. Yeah. It's just part of a larger conversation about sustainability, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that it's not an easy thing to get, and you can be growing things organically but not get a certification.
Absolutely.
Akshata, can you talk a little bit about the products that you make and sort of the challenge of finding ingredients that are safe and sustainable?
Yeah, absolutely. Building off of what she said, you do find vendors that you can buy from who don't have the certification, but it's not that they aren't following procedures, it's just that they can't afford to go through the process. So most of the essential oils I used aren't certified organic or anything like that, but I know they're being sourced from good places, and that all the processing that's done is done well. And so that's what I focus on as well. In the beginning, when I started, there are certain buzzwords in every industry. And so, in coffee, it's fair trade. With skincare right now, it's all natural, though natural has no legal definition at all. But apparently, everything has to be all natural. And then organic and clean and chemical-free. And the biochemist in me sort of rebels against each one of those. Yeah, so you basically, what you can do, the best thing you can do is work with companies and forge relationships with them and ask enough questions about the sources to know that you're getting it from the right place, that you're getting your ingredients from the right place. A big thing for personal care and also food, I believe, right now is palm oil and the deforestation in Southeast Asia because of palm oil plantations and things like that. And so there is a whole group that does sustainably grown palm oil, but there really isn't a lot of control over the certification or something about that. And so that's why I decided to remove all palm oil from my products, just to not even get into that. So that's one way of making sure that you aren't feeding into this whole situation, and you're trying to be as sustainable as possible. But also, if you're trying to use ingredients like coconut oil or mango butter, which is in my products, it's not going to be local, right? I have to source it from the tropics somewhere. And so again, that's when you just have to develop relations with the company that you're buying from. Mine are mostly in New England, the ones that import the ingredients. And so you just have to ask enough questions and learn more about the sources and make sure that you're doing the best that you can.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
Montana, can you talk a little bit? I mean, that just kind of reminded me about what an important part of your business educating your customer is.
Huge. I'm so glad you said
Yeah.
that. I think like my job is less acupuncturist and more teacher, if that makes sense. In the sense of, if you teach a person to fish, you can feed them for a lifetime versus just giving them a pill for every ill. And so a lot of it is sustainability through health practices, whether that is exercise, lifestyle, dietary choices, herbal medicine, which goes kind of hand in hand with this too, and sourcing products from great producers rather than some scary producers that might be out there. But anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and just, I don't know, I'm just kind of interested as a solo practitioner, what was it like to make the jump from like working as part of a collective to owning a business and being an entrepreneur?
Totally. So it was great to have a larger team to start with, but it was a conglomerate of a bunch of different styles of health practitioners, which is wonderful, but it wasn't my vision. It's a wonderful place to start, and I just really wanted to hone in on having a very like professional medical acupuncture clinic, and so it was very liberating when I got to do it all myself and go solo and have complete creative control and build an apothecary just the way I wanted it. And
then you realize that you have to do everything on your own.
And then I realized, oh, like if I take vacation, the whole business grinds to a halt, or, sick day, it's not as easy. And luckily with maternity leave coming up, I have a great experiment. I have a wonderful practitioner who's stepping in for me, and they have the option to stay on when I return. So it kind of could grow organically that way too, and see how it goes.
Yeah. Very cool. Kate, 1% for the Planet, last time I checked, had given back $150 million to environmentally focused nonprofits. Is that accurate still?
It's actually closer to 180 million now.
180. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like, whoa. How has involvement from these businesses and nonprofits sort of changed over the years as 1% has become sort of, now I think everyone recognizes the brand, and it's not just because you guys are here, but how has that sort of grown and changed and become sort of a more commonplace thing in businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question. One, I do want to comment just on the number, because it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, and we're very proud of that, and it's like this much relative to need. So in part, that's an answer to your question, because really what drives us doing the work is realizing that it's so great that we have those commitments from companies, member companies who are giving their 1%. That's where that 180 million comes from. But there's so much more to be done. So that really is sort of what pushes us. And I would say, I don't know if it's a change, but a sort of continued sort of entrepreneurial pressure that we feel is that there's so much that we need to continue to do to grow the amount that we're giving in order to really affect the change that we want to in terms of addressing, climate change and water issues and sustainable agriculture kinds of issues. There are many, many different issues that support businesses sort of along the lines of what we're talking about here. And so, that is really a big push for us. In terms of changes, I can observe trends maybe more than changes. One is a focus that we have articulated, but that we're also really seeing with our member companies around the value of partnerships. So our model is focused on giving. So member companies donate 1% of their annual sales to environmental nonprofits. That's the basic model. And in one way you could see that is, they write a check each year for 1% or a couple checks. But what we have really been focusing on and what we are seeing companies really respond to increasingly is the partnerships that they develop with those nonprofits, between the members and the nonprofits, and the power of those. So I just had a conversation today that kind of captures this. One of our member companies, Sunskis, they make awesome sunglasses. I was talking to them, to one of the founders today, and they're 5 years old, and he was talking about how 1% for the Planet has not only created a way for them to kind of express their own personal kind of mission and purpose. They basically started the company because they wanted to create a business that would support their desire to be outdoors. And so they wanted to support the outdoors. So 1% for the Planet, great way to do that. They could give to POW to protect our winters. They could give to adventure scientists for conservation and feel like through their business they were connecting to the outdoors. And then they found, as they got to know those partners, so these partnerships becoming central, they would talk to the founder of Adventure Science and Conservation, and he would say, hey, great product, but there's a lot of plastic waste coming out of those packages of sunglasses. What are you going to do about that? So it's like, oh, idea planted. And then at our 10th anniversary, at 1% for the Planet's 10th anniversary, the founder of Sunskis met Yvonne Chouinard, who is our founder, the founder of 1% for the Planet, and was so excited and introduced Sunskis to him and had this great opportunity, like, I'm a business owner too. And the response was, great, what are they made out of? And so he said he took it in the right way, which is like, all right, so we're really psyched about this as our sort of lifestyle business, but we're actually now learning that we got to do much more. And so through these partnerships, through the network of partnerships, beyond just the giving, they have now created a recycled line of sunglasses. And by 2020, they'll have, fully recycled all of the packaging, a great return program. So it's an amazing company. And, we didn't do that, but the partnerships that they developed through the network were what enabled that. So it's like giving plus a lot more. And I think that's really a trend that we're certainly pushing because that's where we see a lot of the value. But it's also what a lot of companies are really asking for.
Yeah, and who knows if he would have got that lesson if he hadn't been part of 1% and
Exactly,
and
he really
that.
attributes those partnerships to that too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
While I have you,
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about how your experience as an entrepreneur has sort of changed or affected the way that you kind of communicate with these companies?
Yeah, I think a lot of empathy, I would say. I think it can be, a lot of our work is managing a large network. So we have, 1,400 member companies. We have more than 2,000 nonprofits. All of those are relationships that we manage with our staff of 14. And so that's, a lot of relationships that we're managing every day. So there can be a desire to have them all behave well sometimes. And I think, and we have companies at all different stages. So we have very small startups, we have bigger, more developed companies. So I think, it's helpful to understand the entrepreneurs are still figuring a lot out and don't have the systems in place that some of the bigger companies might have or that we may sometimes want them to have. So I think for me, having that sort of reminder of great value and purpose sometimes has a package that's still developing and getting refined. So our ability both to support that and be patient with that and sort of see the potential in that even as the pieces are getting put together. And again, Sunskis is a great example. They joined basically right when they were getting founded and still figuring a lot of things out. And now they're much more sort of dialed in and have a very sort of clear way of pursuing their relationship with us and their partnerships and things like that. And, we were able to grow with them and they were able to grow with us.
Thank you. Magda, I feel like I am seeing your products everywhere, like everywhere. Anyone else just everywhere? Yeah. Awesome. So awesome. Including at Hotel Vermont, I believe. Yes?
Place close by.
No big. Can you talk a little bit about growing your company and, maybe hiring folks and sort of what your vision is for the future?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So right now we are a staff of 4 people, which Sometimes when I think back, it's pretty amazing what you can do with only 4 people. But in terms of growth and, let's say, staffing, maybe I'll tackle that one first. I think when you're a small business, and this is my first small business experience, but what I've learned is that you're always kind of at a point where you may need new staff, but you may not have the resources. You don't quite know when to jump and make that next step or that next investment. Us being a coffee roastery, we're a fairly capital-intensive business for our green coffee purchases. So staffing or having the resources available for staffing is hard. I think we've been operating fairly bare bones. If I could have, I don't know, I'd probably hire, I don't know, many people right now if I could. But you have to also be smart. We didn't want to hire just people because we needed the work to get done. You have to prioritize, and there may be painful months where you have to wear more hats than you intended to, but you're just not quite ready to make that leap in hiring staff. So from a growth perspective, I think we're in a good place, but you also have to think about what's coming up in the future and projecting out, a year or two. So for us, we're hoping to work on, we have a couple of coffee new products in the works, or we're hoping to launch over the next year. So that may give us a reason to then go ahead and hire some additional staff. It would be nice, yeah.
Awesome. Montana, I know you're like, it's happening right now, but I'm just so curious about sort of the transition to kind of letting go of the reins a little bit and how that's been so far. And maybe we'll check in with you in like 6 months. And
No, it's liberating and scary all at the same time when you've been alone for, mostly like 3 years that I've been alone. But I'm ready in a lot of ways. Like, it's wearing a lot of hats, whether you're doing accounting or your own janitor or all of the things. What was I going to say? I feel lucky that Burlington has been such a wonderful place and resource too. I've had interns as well, and through UVM, which they got class credit to come help me out. So that was a nice, really cool partnership to have, and to see people excited about not only the medicine but the business, and kind of mentor them, and if that's an avenue they wanted to take. But then on the level of like projection and growing, like, I so sympathize with what Magda was saying, that we had this crazy move that transplanted us, and it was a huge investment. It was all of my savings plus a commercial loan. And so my vision of hiring a second practitioner or having like community prescriptions to be filled from my office, like, had to be put on the back burner for a little while. And I'm excited for maybe when I return to like focus more on products, and maybe, having another practitioner around to kind of help ease, doing everything by myself.
So, serendipity helps sometimes, and sort of pushing you into it, doesn't it?
Sometimes stubborn, you just hit a wall until, something, you push through it. Yes.
Yeah, totally. Akshata, I need to know how you manage 2 businesses, because that's like mind-blowing to me.
Well, so one thing that I did notice is, which is pretty funny, is some sort of a trend. So being a nutritionist, for me at least, I see this. I know we don't see it as much on the chiropractic end of things, but starting maybe October on, people don't want me to tell them what they should be eating. It's the holidays. They don't want to see me. They don't want to have anything to do with me. And that's usually when I sort of ramp up and do all my holiday shows. And so I'm like all over Boston and like, Vermont, the New England area. I'm just sort of driving nonstop all through all of that for my shows. And then that ends in December. So I get about like 5 hours of sleep. And then January hits and everybody has New Year resolutions. So it sort of flips back around and I go back into the nutrition aspect of things. But honestly speaking, it's been mostly just great support from all of my clients that come to me for nutrition, just understanding that I do two things. My customers, my wholesale accounts, understanding that I do both things. And also, again, just Greg sort of understanding that I'm doing those things as well. And so I think just that support has been very important. But yes, at some point of time, like she was saying, I have to figure out how to bring in somebody else so that I don't always have to rely on the trends of, this one goes down, that one comes up. I don't have to rely on that happening. And that's something that I was ready to focus on for this year until she made an appearance. And so I might have to just push that back for just a little bit longer. But that's something that I'm really looking forward to, is trying to see how I can keep both going at same speed rather than one slow, one fast, one fast, one slow. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to doing. It definitely, there are days when I think, for me personally, I don't know about Greg, but there have been days where I just want to sort of set fire to it and walk away. Like in the movies, you have this big ball of fire behind you and you're walking very majestically away from it. So I get that image in my head sometimes. I won't lie. I won't say that it's all, bed of roses, definitely. But so far, that's just been a very distant vision.
I could so easily picture that when you said it. We need to make that happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, just don't tell my landlord I said that, please. But, yeah.
So before we jump into Q&A with the audience, any resources in Vermont or people in Vermont that have been particularly helpful to any of you?
I would say other small business owners. Mm-hmm. Vermont is an amazing place. I think we all know that, but coming from outside of Vermont, it was kind of mind-blowing to me how warm, open, and helpful other business owners are, and it's just been a tremendous resource. Yeah. And actually, kind of a side note, but I'm just thinking of, I can't remember what department he was in, but he's a friend now, and back in the early days when I was doing all of the licensing and permitting, I went to City Hall and, I'm used to going to the DMV in Washington, D.C., which I don't recommend to anybody. So, I was like prepared, and I go into, probably was a zoning office or whatever, and the nicest gentleman just comes out and is asking me how I am and just asking about the business, and I was like, oh, what? And it was fantastic. So there are wonderful people from the city as well, and that are a great source of information. But I would say other small business owners are huge, or someone that is even thinking about a business. They always have an answer. Someone always has an answer.
Or has been through it before.
Exactly.
Or is currently going
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
And also struggling.
Needs a support group.
Yeah, trying to approach some of the first few stores. One was, I remember driving into Burlington, falling in love with it, and then we stopped at Healthy Living at one of our first stops, and I just went in. I was like, "Whoa! Can you imagine if my products are sold here one day?" And the first, so she was one of the first buyers that I approached, and I remember she opened the product and smelled it, and her face just lit up, and I don't think I'll ever forget that moment, because it was just like, wow, I made that thing that just made her do that. And so that felt amazing. But I remember her looking at me and saying, "How can I help you?" And I was like, "Is that a trick question?" People have just been, it is true. I mean, I can't imagine living anywhere else doing anything anything else. It's just been amazing the way people have just sort of opened up and welcomed us, because we're both not from, I'm definitely not from Vermont. Greg's from Maine, so I knew that wild horses wouldn't take him further south, and so they couldn't drag him out of New England, and so we decided Burlington was where we'd be.
That's awesome. All right, let's jump into the audience. Who has questions? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Ashley Reynolds. I own a legal cannabis company here in Vermont called Elmer Mountain Therapeutics. It's a CBD company. First of all, I'd love to give my card to every single one of you. I wanted to kind of delve a little bit deeper and a little more personal. Some of you mentioned that your husband is also your business partner, which is also the case of my business. I don't know if any of you are also just the solo entrepreneur in your household, but when there's two that care so deeply and so passionately and see their own directions, sometimes cohesive, sometimes not, how do you best get through those tough times where maybe you don't always agree, or one feels really enthusiastic about the company going in this direction when one feels really passionate about going in that direction? Any of you, how do you guys overcome that challenge with your husband? And blanket statement, how do you get that work-life balance? I also have 2 children. I don't know if these are your first children or not, but 2 under 4, which I take to most of my meetings. And so just how you guys deal with that balance.
Well, maybe I could hop in on the husband question. So I don't have all the answers, but there's a piece of advice that someone, a coffee mentor, when we were pre-Brio, told us, is that you guys have to find your own lanes. And it's like, okay. And luckily, we have very different skill sets, which works out very well. But I don't think that we follow that advice for a while. So it was a very challenging time because you both care so much about it. You also bring in different experiences from your prior life, and you also bring in such a different approach to business or personalities. It all kind of comes together. And it's challenging. The biggest challenge, I think, we're not perfect right now, but at least we've sort of, we've decided, okay, you know what? We just have to figure out what each of us is doing and kind of not get in each other's way a little bit. And communication is probably the biggest piece that even if you have same skill sets or same personalities, but particularly if you're different, communication is key, and still working on it. But so anyway, that was a good piece of advice, and we are trying to be better at it. But we haven't killed each other yet, so that's good. And just on the work-life balance, so we don't have any children yet, and we thought of Brio as our little child. So I don't know how these women do it, honestly, and I'm always in awe of women entrepreneurs with children, and so I will be asking you how you do it. But if you are working with a partner or spouse, it is really difficult to get work-life balance. And you hear now, okay, well, there's no such thing as a work-life balance. It's, I don't know what that latest term is in like the HR world or whatnot. But you know, I live and breathe the business, but I enjoy it. So I used to bring it all home all the time. It was that 4 years into the business, I have now learned that I can't do that because it's not really sustainable for myself, probably not the best for the business, probably not the best for my relationship. So you do have to be very mindful of leaving some things behind and sort of making sure that you have time for yourself, time for yourself as a couple, as a person, because otherwise it's just too much. You see each other too much.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. Basically, in our case, it's been a little simpler because we have two businesses, and so he sort of takes care of the wellness center decisions that need to be made, and I decided I would do that for the OrangeOwl. We do speak to each other and have advice for each other at times, but otherwise those are the lanes that we've found, and we've been trying very hard to stick to it, and that definitely makes a difference. Another thing that I didn't believe in the beginning, which Greg had insisted on right from the also because he's more organized than I am, certainly, is that he can, clinics done at 6, he's finished with all the things that need to be done by 6:30, 6:45, and he's done, he's home. And since I was working at home, I could go downstairs to the basement anytime I wanted in my pajamas and whip up a batch of lip balms. And so that definitely was something I had to work on, is just sort of finding where I stopped. And so we just decided that when, he's home from the clinic, we just chose a time and said that that's where we stop. And then we don't really unless, of course, I have, deadlines of 3,000 lip balms need to be labeled by day after tomorrow, then, well, I'm sorry, we're staying up till midnight and inviting all our friends over for pizza without telling them that there's a side project going on as well. So, that certainly happens. But as much as possible, I think the main things are just sort of finding what parts you can be in charge of and taking control of that, and making sure you have an end point. I don't know if there's a perfect work-life balance. I certainly will be finding out much more this year. But that's something that's definitely helped us. And also, Greg and I met working together. We've always worked together in the labs for research, all of that. And so that certainly helped when we set up all of this. But there was 3 months when we first started out where we didn't have, we don't know anybody in Vermont, so it's not like people are going to walk in and say, hey, look, new clinic, I'll be your patient. It takes some time, and especially when you have absolutely no contacts. So the first 3 months were really rough, and we lived really far away, so we have this whole plan of if we're going into do our commute, then we're going to get groceries, all of it. So we were stuck at home together for 3 months, and that was a test of marriage. I won't lie. But other than that, I think we've sort of found where we are, and it's definitely much better.
I think you're going to end the night with a lot of volunteers. I just want to go and help.
Done. Greg will have a sign up somewhere saying, please.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Can I chime in quickly?
Yes,
on this
please.
one also? So my kids are 15 and 18, and I worked all the way through. Well, maybe different stretch.
Just kidding. I call my parents every day.
But they were, 5 and 8 when we started the Yak business, and we both had full-time jobs, and we were both trying to figure out what our own lanes were in the Yak business. And I don't know, I look back now and it was messy at times, but we also laughed a lot, and there was a lot of good chaos, and the chaos kind of changes and goes away. And so I know that probably right now what you would love to not have your kids at every meeting with you, but they're probably soaking up a lot of good stuff. My daughter's 18, and she's able to say that she's really, really proud of having parents who, did that work. And that's great to hear, because there are times when you think, oh my gosh, maybe it would be better if I could not be doing all this. But I don't know, there is value if you can sort of keep an eye on sort of what it is that you're doing it all for. That sort of helps navigate through that. And then I think also a sense of humor is really, really valuable. I mean, we definitely didn't always maintain that, but when we did and just found ourselves laughing our heads off at at the worst thing that had just happened, it really helped a lot. So, thank you. Yeah.
He's coming for you.
How did you all find your niche in the community? Because, natural body care, sustainability, acupuncture, coffee, every corner you turn, you can find all of this. How did you define yourselves?
start?
Go for it.
Okay. So I think we were trying to think of Brio from a very business perspective. We were making this huge life change, moving. We left careers behind, and my dad didn't talk to me for like weeks because he was upset that, oh my God, you're doing what? Coffee? What? But it's a big decision. So we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable. I think even now I hear younger, not all the time younger, but other people coming in and be like, oh yeah, I want to start a roastery. It's like, okay, yep. And certainly, we don't have all the answers, and we're trying to figure it out as we go along as well. But we know that we want it to be a sustainable business, both for us as individuals. We moved here and this is our livelihood, but also from a perspective of being able to remain in the community, being very productive members of the community, and knowing that, we will probably live here for the rest of our lives and have children, all that good stuff. So you have to think of it from a business perspective, I think. So when we were looking, when we decided it was going to be this business, we were lucky, I guess, in the sense that we didn't think the market here had what we wanted to do, which I think gave us an advantage, and is often the case. You hear all the time, well, I thought of doing this because I didn't see it on the shelves, or I'm sure you guys have that experience as well. You have to find something that differentiates you. And for us, we wanted to roast coffee a certain way that we felt was different and was lacking. And in addition to coffee, we wanted to approach coffee from an educational perspective. We were baffled by the fact that no one was doing coffee education or training of baristas here when they would sell coffee, roasted coffee, which to us was kind of a no-brainer, but no one was doing it. So, we decided to do that, and you just have to keep on going and make sure that that you're offering something different and something better, hopefully.
Yeah, to jump in after Magda, I think a lot of it is not seeing things and wanting to offer that, and also research too. When I was looking at moving back to Burlington, which is what my heart wanted, I made the comparison from Boulder, Colorado to Burlington, Vermont. There was 831 acupuncturists in Boulder, which had 100,000 people, versus 15 here in Burlington for 40,000 people. So crunching those numbers was really helpful. Math helps. But then also that Montpelier has an amazing Western herbal school, but there's not really a presence of Eastern or Chinese medicine and herbs in the state. And so that was, I think a lot of things I got lucky that this is just a perfect place to kind of plant these roots because there wasn't a lot of saturation here.
Other questions? Yeah. Right behind you.
Hi. So my first part of my question is actually a comment to Magda. So I'm the Director of Tourism and Marketing for the state, and so my job is to welcome people to the state. I'm also part of a larger initiative to bring entrepreneurs to the state like you, so I can tell you unequivocally, you are not an imposter. You are absolutely welcome, and we're very, very grateful that you decided to move here and start your business. So my question to all of you panelists is, can you give us an example of where you met a loss or a real failure and how that stimulated growth in your either personal growth or in your company?
That's always my favorite question. It's where it gets real.
We all feel like you guys are champions. We're like, oh my God, we're such failures. So give us an example of how you failed that led to your growth.
Kick us off, Magda.
Okay. I'm just going to confess. It's fine.
This is part therapy for you.
I know,
too.
it really is. It's okay. I got to get it all out. That's the other thing that they don't tell you when you have a business with a partner is that you need other people to talk to about things at work or what's going on because you can't talk to them about it. But anyway, I think for me, it's been, you're not alone. Like, no one is alone in feeling that way. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that you have to do a lot of self-reflection. I came into the business, not really having an official background in, coffee and running a business. Yes, I had the accounting piece, but, talk about marketing and sales and, retail operations. I had no idea. But I kind of came in with it. I kind of came in with an attitude of, you know what, I could figure it out. I could do it. I'm educated. I've done well in my previous career. But then I got to my business and I was like, oh, crap. Why am I not doing so well? I feel like I'm failing, or I feel like, gosh, I used to be so organized, super organized, and now it's like I can't even find, this piece of paper or whatnot. And it's a real humbling experience, at least it was for me, coming into it having a prior, professional life. So I don't know if I have one, failure to point to, but I think for me, the failure has been to not always self-reflect and, one, admit that, yeah, you didn't do this as well as you could, and then being okay with it and figuring out what to do about it. And I will just confess that this year I've been on a total self-help book thing, and I thought it was so corny. But, it's my thing what I did this year because of kind of feeling like, wow, you should be doing better, or there are things that you don't feel confident about, and you can't look at other people. That's the other thing. That's another very important, I think, lesson that I've learned is that you just have to be focused, do your thing, and be open to yourself about, you know what, I'm really not great at this, or I was great at this, now I'm not so great because, and kind of understand why, and figure out what you could do about it. There's plenty of things that you could do, so.
I think that for me, again, there wasn't any particular instance, but it was this idea that fake it till you make it. Just you have to always have this perfect appearance of everything's fine, I'm doing great, everything is wonderful. And the pressure of that can be crushing. And I think I realized that because early on I did some of the largest trade shows in the country, which was completely insane. But so I took the one-person OrangeOwl company booth to the Natural Products Expo on the West Coast and the East Coast. So on the West Coast, it's 2,400 booths, and you have 60,000 people that walk it who are all potential buyers. On the East Coast in Baltimore, it is 1,200 booths and about half of the number of buyers. And so I remember preparing for that. And before that, I went and did an MTV gifting suite where I very happily went to LA and met all these people I had never heard of. And so anyway, so I did all these things, and everyone kept telling me, every time I was nervous about it, people would tell me, fake it till you make it, you'll be fine. And I'd be standing there thinking I was standing in a pool of my own sweat and trying to figure out how to hide that from other people because I had to fake it till I made it. And so I think that putting that type of pressure on yourself can really make it very difficult for you to think ahead or what you want to do next, or be more clear about what you want to do with your brand and your product. And so I think getting over that has been the biggest learning experience I've had. Is it's helped me get more confident about my brand. It's helped me figure out this is what I want. Then that's what matters more than what everyone around me thinks or expects it to be, other people's expectations versus what yours are, and how you want to take that next step. So just sort of figuring that out, I think, was the biggest lesson that I've learned over the last however many years. Yeah. But every 3 or 4 months, I just say, so it still happens. So it's not that it's all gone and it's perfect again and wonderful. But it's a continuous journey. You're never going to be in a place where it's going to be all wonderful. I think the default status, mental status for an entrepreneur is panic. So it's just your continuous. That's where you are. You'll be happy, but you'll come back to that. So just
Constant roller coaster.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I know it's going to be a roller coaster. I know it's going to be panic. How can I best manage that?
Yeah,
for
exactly.
myself?
And for me,
And
the
for those
wellness-
around you.
Yeah, and for me, the wellness part of it came in with that, because that made such a huge difference for me. Is I'm doing all of this, but then I also on a regular basis go back to my roots and talk about. My most common patient is women with hormonal issues, and so stress and things like that, and what that can do. So sort of, I build up all my stress here and go back and breathe. Build up all my stress here, go back and breathe. So I definitely have that. That also helps. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're almost out of time here, but in the spirit of supporting female founders, I have had a request from an awesome, badass female entrepreneur who would like to give us a quick pitch. Should we let her do it? Mm-hmm. Yeah? All right, give it up for Georgia Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Georgia Grace. I'm a senior at Middlebury College, and I'm currently taking Middlebury Entrepreneurs with Meg and Ava and Sam and Dave. And I am the founder, as of this month, of She Fly, which is a layerable line of outdoor pants for women that allow them to easily relieve themselves outside. It's been such an honor to hear these women speak about how far they've come with their businesses, and I think a main message I've taken away is that they needed help doing it. So this is basically a plea for help for anyone who can offer it. If you are a designer or a sewer or someone who's interested in testing my product, I brought a prototype tonight. So it's a front to back zipper. This is a hiking pant prototype. And there's 2 zipper pulls so that women can adjust the location and the size of the space they need to create. I'm trying to start with a winter line so that people can test it during the season of ski and snow pants. They feature a zipper, and then the layer underneath is long underwear with flaps. So thank you.
Thanks, Georgia Grace. Is that the best idea ever? Yeah. Hello. A quote from Georgia Grace was also, "Our anatomy is not the problem." And I was like, my girl. Awesome. That was a great way to end. Thank you all so much. You guys are incredible. Let's give them a hand to our speakers.